Ah yes, the magnificent Trolley Sourbright Crawler, also known as Trollicus brightolus. The worm's captivating neon colour makes it an easy, gummy prey.
Trolley!
It's a surprisingly sour, invitingly chewy, staggeringly snackable species unlike anything else found on this planet.
Eat me!
Delicious. Visit Trolley.com to shop now.
Trolley, eat me!
This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
Joe, 4 episodes left. This is we're wrapping up the whole series. Here we are, the OC.
Can you believe it?
4, episode 13, The Case of the Franks. And here's my somewhat hot take.
Okay.
Here. Now, last episode, I was really worried that like the goofiness of this season was going to go away and that Ryan's dad was going to like come in like a bull in a china shop and like fuck up a bunch of shit. And it was going to be like, you know, I was thinking like the last 4 episodes of season 2 all over again. You know what I mean? Like it was going to be bad. Instead, this episode is goofy as hell. And it left me wondering why we're still doing this. That's not for not like I love dumb episodic sitcom-y, like I want it to be kind of goofy, light and wholesome. But I'm sitting here watching this episode. I watched next week's episode, and I'm just kind of at a loss of like, they really got to sell me on why episode 12 wasn't the final episode. Like episode 12 felt like so many things got tied up in a nice little box. And now it's like kind of just wheels spinning in mud. Not that it's bad or like unenjoyable to watch, but it feels kind of like, why are we still here? Like everybody's story is mostly wrapped up at this point. I did... and this is something that's kind of fresh in my mind too. This episode really focuses a lot on Julie Cooper's love life. That seems to be like where we're wrapping things up.
Yeah.
I finished One Tree Hill this week. Completely finished the whole series.
And
something that drove me nuts in that last episode or last couple episodes is that they kind of do this thing where, because your 2 main characters have been gone for 3 seasons, they just shift the narrative to essentially be like, the show's always been about Brooke. Like, this is like, and I'm like, no, it hasn't. Like, you know, like Brooke's husband, Julian, starts to film a TV show adaptation on Lucas's book. And it's like, yeah, the whole show's about Brooke. And I'm like, what? Like it's, and I think that that's kind of what's happening right now, is that they're just kind of taking this narrative of like, oh, but don't you see, the whole show wasn't about Ryan. It was about Julie Cooper's love life from day one. Like that's what I feel like is happening right now, that everything else is tied up nicely, but we're like in this hyper fixated on who will Julie Cooper pick storyline suddenly.
I hear what you're saying. I think it's just like, I don't know, because part of me is also, when I was watching this episode, I just kept thinking, like, if they hadn't killed off Marissa, is this where we would have ended up?
No. The answer is no.
Maybe not like a Frank Atwood, but maybe like another person, right? Like I think we would have ended up also because like I really liked the the series finale. So like in order for certain things in the series finale to happen, I think you do need to have some sort of like, I think this like love interest versus love interest, Bullet versus whoever would have still happened, but it wouldn't have been Ryan's dad.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, let's break down the episode a little bit. I took a decent amount of notes, so I'm just going to kind of read them one by one, and we can kind of linger on if there's anything that we need to talk about here. But I wrote, Ryan doesn't want to get too crazy with Valentine's Day. And because Taylor has absolutely no chill, she steals an address from his house and ends up seeing his father. And this is probably going to set something terrible into motion. Now, I've already said that's not the case. This turns into like Taylor just butting in way too much throughout this episode.
She do love a butt in.
I literally wrote down a note that just said, I get why people hate Taylor now. Like, because I was like, you know me, I was like Team Taylor for most of the latter half of season 3 and all of this season. Like, what? She's just like goofy and fun and weird. And like this, I'm just like, girl, calm the fuck down. Like you got Ryan. Y'all have been dating for like a few weeks conservatively at this point. Like you are just too invested and psychotic in this right now. And it's not, I'm not feeling like Ryan's getting a happily ever after with Taylor the way she be acting in these last couple episodes. Then we get this very weird mini plot of Summer and Kirsten looking at photos of when Kirsten was dating Jimmy Cooper. And we get these like flashbacks to like young Kirsten, young Jimmy, young Sandy. And like,
you didn't like that?
Well, no, what I don't like is there's this part where Kirsten's flashing back to her time with Jimmy Cooper and Sandy walks in and she lies and says that she's looking at old pictures of Seth when he was a baby. And then she leaves and like Sandy opens up the book or the box and sees that it's only photos of her with Jimmy Cooper. And it's like, man, are we really fucking doing like, thankfully they didn't go too deep into that, but there was a part of me that's like, man, are the next 3 or 4 episodes going to be a fucking Sandy Cooper, Kirsten marriage crisis storyline? Like I was nervous about that. Listen, I love that Schmidt from fucking New Girl is young Sandy Cohen in these flashbacks. That filled me with delight.
I know. I love me a Max Greenberg so much.
The flashbacks were fun. Like the flashbacks were totally fun. But again, it felt like filler. Like they do this like Seth and Summer flashback as well, where the camera work is just psychotic. Like the camera work is just like the most shaky, handheld, like zoomed. And I'm like, why are we doing this? Why is the flashback more cinematic than anything that happens in real time in the OC? And all that flashback does, we get the same flashback twice, is that Seth says that the moment he knew he loved Summer was when she read a poem about being a mermaid and he stole the poem from the trash. But then it's revealed that Taylor wrote that poem in the first place and gave it to Summer because she didn't do the poem homework assignment. And it's just like, again, it's like, these are just like, this is, I guess this is where my complaint is, right? Episode 10 of season 5 of Friends, when there's like another 13 episodes in that season and another 5 seasons to go. These are the types of storylines you expect to hit, right? You get like wait, Ross and Rachel have totally different memories of this like insignificant moment of their past. 3 episodes to the finish line, it's just like, why are we doing these storylines? Like I am very interested to see when we get to this final episode, because at this point in time, there are 2 episodes left in my brain to watch. I am very curious to see what happens in episodes 15 and 16 that justifies like episode 13 and 14, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Like, to me, I just feel like 12 tied up so many loose ends. I'm excited to see. I'm interested to see if episode 16 could have just come immediately after episode 12 and not been like seeped in so much of this, or is all of this, or is episode 16 going to be just like mostly all of this and it's like a second version of a finale? Please do not answer. Like, I want to like find out for myself, but like that's where I'm just like kind of playing with in my head, and I feel like if I was watching this live, I'd kind of be frustrated at this point, knowing that the show is wrapping up, knowing that there was a really nice ending. You got this tease of like, ooh, there's one more big, sinister, dramatic plot coming up. And then it's just like a sitcom-y love triangle storyline. And I'm just like, I don't know if I needed this. But, also, I forgot about this. Am I misinterpreting that the random flashbacks also for no reason just tosses out there that like Kirsten aborted Jimmy Cooper's child when she was 18?
Yeah.
What a wildly unnecessary, what I wrote down, what a wildly unnecessary plot point 4 episodes from a final.
See, they did something similar in Scandal, which I was like, we don't need, like, we didn't ask for this.
You know
Why
what that
are we
is?
doing this?
That is the equivalency of one of my favorite movies. I've talked to you about it on your podcast. It's that moment in Monster Squad where the German guy closes the door and we zoom in on his fucking Auschwitz tattoo on his arm for no reason, and then just move on. Like, it's like, oh, by the way, this guy also was in a concentration camp once. Anyway, plot continues with the goofy kids fighting monsters. Glad we took this 30-second detour into make you feel real bad's world for a second. Like, that blew my mind. And then we get this elaborate, stupid thing where it's Caitlin versus Taylor on who's going to set Julie Cooper up with like they're playing it like it's like a Team Jacob, Team Edward type situation.
This plot line I hated the most. I was like, we are like, what are we doing here? This makes no fucking sense. I hate it so much. Like,
I literally wrote, what is happening? They somehow organized an elaborate host in which Taylor drives a limo to steal Julie to meet up with Frank. Like, what is even happening on this show at this point in time?
And Bullet actually comes out like looking like a decent human because he's like, well, if she doesn't love me, like, I want her to be happy.
Joe,
and Caitlin's like, no.
When I tell you that Casablanca walk-off at the end of this episode was one of the most endearing things I've ever seen in the time that we've done this podcast, and I was like, if you're trying to make me root for over Bullet, this is not the way to do it.
Yeah.
Like, because I said like Caitlin realizes Julie's in love with Frank more than the Bullet and decides to let her be with who she loves but wants to continue to be pals with the Bullet. And like the way that whole scene plays out where she just has this father figure that she likes and looks up to, like, I was like, I am fine with this being the end of it. But I watched next week's episode also, and I know that this isn't the end of it, and that Caitlin is just the worst. Like, again, to stress for yet another time, we are so close to the finale. How has Caitlin not grown one fucking bit since the first episode of this season? Like, she is the same snotty, immature character where you see her like make a baby step towards maturity and then just like 4 steps backwards into like the trash person that she is in this show. Like, she is, I said this about Chris Keller and Rachel when I was watching One Tree Hill with Barb, and I feel like it's the case with Caitlin. those two characters, Rachel and Chris Keller, and now I will say Caitlin, they're like these utility players for the writers where they never have any definitive position of like good person, bad person. It's just whatever the script needs them to be for that episode. They can be this amazing supportive friend, or they can be the worst human being in the entire show. And it just makes for a frustratingly inconsistent character. And like, that is the best way to describe Caitlin for me, is that she is frustratingly inconsistent on this show.
She's very like you want to root for her because ultimately there are good and redeeming aspects of her.
Yep.
Right? But like, she's going about it in the wrong way. It's a very anti-hero way. She is embodying what I think most people think of Julie Cooper for most of the series.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, you know, unscrupulous, but kind of like heart of goldie. And like, when you think about Julie as a woman who is just trying to do her best to support her family, everything, in my mind, everything that she's done up to this point has been justified. Because she's still doing it now, right? Like, she's still doing it now, choosing at the end of the episode where she's like, and she's in the limo, and she's like going to Bullet because that's what Caitlin wants. It's who Caitlin, like, you know, she wants to see her children happy, so she's putting their happiness over hers.
Yeah, no, 100%.
It's Croctober, the official celebration of Crocs fans like you. So whether you like to rock your classic clogs, get cozy and fuss-lined, personalize with your favorite Jibbitz charms, or even, you know, dress up like a clog for Halloween, it's time to tell your story and share your style. Join the Croctober celebration with Crocs fans around the world. Go to crocs.com to discover the range of shoes and find a pair that's iconic like you. Crocs, celebrating you all month long.
This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
We're making an ad.
Napping ads.
I hear that Gary Sinise is free.
Oh, okay, great.
He hasn't worked since 2020.
So, what would be the script that we would have Gary Sinise say for the Napping Through Happy Hour podcast?
Listen to this damn show. Damn it.
The Napping Through Happy Hour podcast, brought to you by Geekscape.
Real life, real drama, real time.
I'm Gary Sinise.
That's the ad. That's the ad. That's the ad.
Joe, I feel like if I had to say anything about this episode, it seems like we were both kind of ho-hum about it. We didn't hate it, but we certainly didn't love it. And I think that's a good way to describe the music in this week's episode. We had 3 songs in there. We had REM's Talk About Passion, which plays when Kirsten has a flashback to the sweater party with Jimmy. Youth Group with Start Today, Tomorrow plays when we see young Sandy meet young Kirsten for the first time. And the Midway States Unaware plays when Julie and Frank reunite at the end of the episode. I almost picked the REM one because I'm a huge REM fan, but I can't deny that this Youth Group song, like as it was playing, I was like, God damn, this is a really good song, actually. So I changed over to Youth Group. I had REM written down originally, but I think I like the Youth Group song a little bit more.
It's the Youth Group song for me too. I think it just fits. It's nice because we get to see, we get to know we know what they're going to become.
Yes.
And so it kind of embodies that like potential, but also that potential, but also like it's the beginning of a story of a very storied love.
Yes. It's beautifully done. And Joe, let's talk about stuff that we thought was beautifully done in the world of pop culture. I watched an incredible documentary on Netflix that I was very late to the party of. I think everyone had watched this the week it came out, but I finally watched Dirty Pop, the boy band scam.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which, I mean, most of us already kind of know this story. It's not the biggest secret in the world, but I was glad to see a documentary finally like diving into the details of it, because it is kind of fascinating how this dude just kept ripping people off. Like it's insane that it was like not just boy bands, but like planes and like other hobbies. He just like crafted this air of confidence while having no real money or true success. Everything that was successful was almost by accident. Like there's a part of me that thinks that he didn't intend for bands like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC to get so big, because they kind of put a giant magnifying glass over the entire operation. You know what I mean? Like it's a very interesting documentary. Highly recommend watching it. Netflix is great for these types of things. And now, Joe, what is something pop culture that you have watched?
So I started watching the new cooking competition show on Max called Last Bite Hotel.
Okay.
With Titus Burgess. And I gotta tell you, I was like, there's so much going on. So the premise is that a group of chefs are only allowed to bring 13 ingredients with them to last a week of cooking challenges at this hotel. And then one by one, and they don't know what they're going to make. They just have to bring 13 ingredients and be as versatile as possible. And then one by one, these special guests check in and they are like, I want to have a steak dinner. I want to have a really spicy meal. And they have to use whatever it is that they have in their trunks to make that meal, whether or not they are able to actually successfully complete the brief. And it's about their interpretation of it. And it's really interesting because there's a lot of like strange reality show like surprises and gameplay in it. And Titus Burgess is the host, and he is so over the top in a way that is like kind of works. Like he's so over the top that it shouldn't work, but it does. And as people get eliminated, they're able to like will away the remainders of their trunks to other people. So there's like this extra element. And one thing that's really cool, and ultimately it's a show about like zero waste cooking, right? And one thing that's really cool about it is that like when they're done making the dish for the challenge, they like you see them like clean up and like make sure that they're not letting anything go to waste. So if they cut a chicken and if they cut like chicken thighs and only use the meat, they're like taking the bones so that way they can make broth later. Like it's very cool how to see chefs on like that high level think very deeply about the kinds of ingredients. So I love cooking competition shows. And so this one, I was watching it and I'm like, okay, I'm actually kind of interested in this.
I love that. I may have to check that out as well. Joe, we'll be back next week with the first of the final 3 episodes ever of the OC. Because boy, is there never going to be, I don't think we're ever getting a big reunion of the OC the way that all these other
they've said as much. They said that they're not doing it. Plus, like, plus you have the Misha Barton question. Like, she's still very much alive. Would that even be something that, you know what I mean? Like, that she would participate in? And she said she wouldn't.
Yeah, no, fair. Well, we'll see. We'll see if we think that that's a mistake in the next 3 weeks.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.